Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of ScanForce's educational webinar series. Bryan Berry here, and today we're going to be discussing a couple of topics that on the outset you might think, well, those aren't really overly related. Directed physical count and mobile sales is really two very different things. However, can't sell stuff if you don't know what you got. So these are two topics that are forever linked and crucially important to your organization. Obviously, you can't sell something if you don't know what you have, and you don't want to overpromise something by thinking you've got it, promising it to your customer, and then it have not show up on their doorstep. So that's going to be our topic of discussion for today. My name is Bryan Berry, and I head up the 100 team here at ScanForce. There's several members here that you may interact with over time, but I handle all of the demonstrations, discovery calls, things of that nature. So if you have any questions about anything Sage 100 related, I'm the person to talk to. Please give us a call. Just ask for Bryan, and I'm pretty easy to find. Here's a quick agenda that we'll go through today. We're going to do a quick barcoding 101, just because with barcodes, there's quite often misconceptions about what barcodes are capable of doing, and sometimes people overcommit. They think they can do a little more than they can. So I just like to level the playing field and make sure that everybody understands the capability and how we at ScanForce utilize barcodes to increase accuracy and efficiency. Okay? I'll give you a very brief overview of our company, because I know to many of you, we are already a known entity. For those of you that are first-time listeners, I appreciate you joining in. And then we'll jump right into the meat of it. We'll talk about the physical count, and then we'll jump into mobile sales. At the very end, I'm going to do a segment that I call What's Hot Right Now. Basically, what are the things that make my phone ring? What are things that other Sage 100 users excited about? What makes them want to talk to me about adding components to their system? And if it's important to the larger Sage 100 community, there's a really good chance that it may spark some interest for yourself as well. And of course, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. I hope you can stick around for that. Now, normally, this is the point of the presentation where the person presenting says, please put away your cell phones and silence them. I'm going to do the exact opposite. Please get your cell phones out. I need you to participate in this conversation. If you will open up the camera app on your phone, remember back in the post-COVID days where you have to hover your camera app over a QR code in a restaurant to bring up their menu, and then you'd have to put on your bifocals or trifocals or quadfocals to be able to read it? Well, we're going to do something similar today. If you just open up the camera app, hover over that, you don't have to take a picture of it, it will give you a link that'll pop up at the bottom of your screen. You click on that, it's going to link your phone to my presentation. That way, when I pop up a question in a little while, you're going to be able to answer those, and I promise, completely anonymous. I, even as the organizer, cannot see the individual answers that come through. We just see total quantities, like 20% of the people said answer A, 30% of the people said answer B, and so on. So I encourage you to participate, because the answers to your questions will dictate the direction that I take the conversation. If everybody's kind of leaning one way versus the other, that will sort of dictate which way we go with our conversation. So you really will be sort of leading this presentation as we go. If you have any trouble linking with this, as soon as I advance off this screen, have no fear, this same linking barcode is going to be in the top left-hand corner of all the poll questions, so you could rejoin. Again, just hold your phone up with the camera app open, click the link. It should say ScanForce, and it probably says something like no active polls, because I haven't put any questions up there yet. Okay? All right, so let's jump into that barcoding 101 really quick and have our first poll question. Now, when you click your answer, you're going to have to hit send at the bottom there. Otherwise, it won't actually go. But I'd like for you to take a guess. What year do you think barcodes were first created? See a couple of answers starting to flow in. I greatly appreciate that. So go ahead and get your answers locked in. I know this is the first one, so I'll give everybody just an extra second on this one. I appreciate all of the input. That's great. So the year that you think barcodes were first created, let's take a look and see what everybody's got thinking. Okay, 1974. The vast majority of you said that. Nobody picked 1776. No patriots out there. Few people may have picked 1948, but the 1974 seem to be carrying, or excuse me, 1974s seem to be carrying the day. Let's see what's the reality. Okay, The first item ever scanned was in 1974. It was a pack of Wrigley's gum. So a bunch of you have probably heard this story, which is why you selected 1974. However, I'm sneaky. Trick question. It wasn't when was the first barcode scanned. It was when they first created, and that was way back in 1948. So those of you that guessed 1948, you're the only ones that know that. So congratulations, pat yourself on the back. It was at Drexel University. A couple of guys got together, came up with this idea to create lines that would mean alphanumeric characters, okay? And they actually got a patent for it way back in the early 50s. And in fact, this is a screenshot from that patent. It was called the bullseye barcode for obvious reasons. And this is sort of, I jokingly call this the Betamax of barcodes. You remember the Betamax VHS wars back in the day? VHS won out. Well, the linear barcodes of what we would think of more like a pick and fence type barcode, that won out because of the printing capabilities that existed back at the time. These bullseye barcodes, a lot of curved lines, and the printers just couldn't print them with great success and replicate them over and over again. It was much easier to print the straight lines of the traditional pick and fit style barcode. That's why the bullseye barcode kind of went the way of the Betamax or the Dodo. It never really won out, but this is our history. This is where barcoding got its start. Okay, next question. How many barcode symbologies are there? And a lot of you are scratching your head thinking, what the heck is a symbology? Well, I'm going to tell you. This is the vocabulary section of Barcoding 101. A symbology is a language of a barcode. Humans have English and French and Spanish and German and whatever else kind of languages that we talk and write in. Barcodes have languages of their own. Take a wild guess. How many different languages or symbologies do you think that there are out there in the world today? All right, answers are starting to flow in. Let's see what people are saying. Like most of you guessed 30, and you are right. There are roughly 30. There's some debate about some that are variations on one or the other, but 30 is the answer. There's roughly 30 barcode languages. Again, we call those symbologies, okay? Now, that's important because, oh, I see some people are waiting till I give the answer to pop here. Vote in. I see, sneaky. So this is really important because I have customers that call me and say, oh, Bryan, this barcoding solution, I don't think ScanForce is going to work for me because my vendor uses a different symbology, whatever that is, than what we use internally. So I don't think this is going to work because it's not compatible. Have no fear, this is not a problem. All the barcode scanners that are made today have all the decode algorithms for all 30 symbologies. So it doesn't matter what symbology, whether it's a one-dimensional or two-dimensional, like this QR code up here at the top, this is a two-dimensional barcode. We refer to that as the demented chessboard. Obviously, you see this. Actually, if you look across this, every little block that you see up here, it's basically its own barcode. So the system decodes each one of those and stitches it back together. Okay? Now, I want to ask a question more specific to your operation if you're an end user. If you're a reseller partner of ours, again, thank you for joining in. But think about your customers when I ask this question. Do people out there, are you using lots and or serial numbers in your operation? Do you have that valuation method in Sage for some of your items set to either lot or serial? I promise there's a method to the madness, the reason I asked the question. So go ahead and pop your answer in. It's a simple yes or no. Don't even have to guess on this one. Okay, so 2/3 or so are leaning towards the yeses. So we're seeing this more and more. People tracking lot numbers, batch numbers or heat numbers of metal, things like that is a lot, or individual serial numbers. If you're using lots or serials, two-dimensional barcodes will become very important to you because with one 2D barcode, like the QR code on your screen now, we can encode a lot of data. We can encode things like the item code, the lot number, the expiration date, things like that. And then with one barcode scan, we can then capture all of that data. Here's another vocabulary term for you, the term parsing. To parse a barcode means to break it into its component elements. So we can have an item code, a lot number, or a serial number, an expiration date, things of that nature. And then we'll populate the data into the ScanForce handheld application in the right place. Now, some of you may have heard of something called a GS1 barcode. It's a global standard for barcodes. And they have an identifier. It's like it's normally like a 2-digit code. There are some different variations, but a code in the beginning that tells you what comes next. So I forget the exact numbers, but like 02 might mean that's the item code or part number. And then there might be an 11 that might say that's a lot number, or a 17 that might say the next digits are serial numbers. So if you have that in there, then the barcode readers can decode that and say, oh, I read 11, that means the next few characters are going to be a serial number. Okay. And again, I may be off on my identifier numbers, but I promise you the barcode scanners are never off. They read it correctly. So these two-dimensional barcodes become very important for those of you that have lots and serials. Imagine every time somebody scans a barcode, you automatically capture the lot or serial. How many times in your warehouse today do people have to radio down on the walkie-talkie from the office saying, hey, Bubba, you forgot to record the lot number or the serial numbers on that order that went out 6 hours ago. What were they? And the guy's thinking, I don't remember what I had for lunch. I certainly don't remember all those serial numbers. Well, with 2D barcode, with every scan, we automatically capture that. ScanForce will not allow you to move forward on a lot or serialized item without capturing that data. So we automate it, we make it very, very simple. So while we're on the subject of two-dimensional barcodes, here's one last question about those. How many digits, like alphanumeric characters, do you think a 2D barcode can hold? And I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. Go ahead and pop in an answer. Again, no right answers or wrong answers. Just pop it. Well, actually, there is one right and all the rest are wrong. But nobody will know what you said, so don't worry about it. Just go ahead and pop your answer in, and then let's see some quantities light up. Let's see, we're in the double digits now. So let's go ahead and advance on and see what you're thinking. Most of you are saying around 250. Not a bad guess, but actually the 7,000s have it. Over 7,000 actually. So one QR code or two-dimensional barcode like the one you see on your screen now can hold over 7,000 characters. I can encode the entire Gettysburg Address the size of a postage stamp. I say that a lot, so those of you who've been on calls with me before may have heard that before, but it's the truth. So we can certainly hold your item, lot, and expiration date, okay? I promise. Now, that's a little intro on barcoding. You've learned some terminology like parsing barcodes, symbologies of barcodes, things like that. What I want you to be able to talk amongst yourselves, whether you're a partner, a reseller partner, or an end user. I want you to be able to talk intelligently with one another about barcoding in your warehouse to convey your questions, okay? And then when you and I get on the phone, I'll be able to answer those questions, and you'll actually be able to understand the vernacular that I'm throwing at you. Now, bear with me. I've been in the barcoding world for over 25 years, so sometimes I nerd out a little bit. I am the ultimate barcode geek. I fully admit it. And I would love to have a conversation with you and talk about how barcodings can impact your world. So now that you've learned a little bit about barcoding in general, let's learn a little bit more about my company, ScanForce. Well, we've been around for a long time in the software world. We've been here for over 20 years, and we grew out of Sage 100. It was actually a Sage 100 customer that said, hey, I want to scan barcodes. How do I do that? And their reseller partner wrote something for them that became ScanForce, okay? And now we have over 10,000 users across Sage. Sage has actually come to us and said, hey, we love what you have for 100. Could you port this over to this other Sage ERP package? So we're actually in the process now of getting ready to release our 4th integration to Sage products. So we continue to expand our product line and our offering across the Sage spectrum, okay? So in other words, we have a really good, close working relationship with Sage, okay? Now, what is it that we do? What do we have? Well, number one, WMS. Now, if you don't know, here's another terminology for your glossary. WMS stands for Warehouse Management System. Basically, it's a $10 word for barcoding system. Okay, Warehouse Management System, or WMS for short. We have 3 different versions called Core, Select, and Premier. And as you would imagine, the functionality steps with each, as does the price. So we have a version that will fit your needs, no matter what they are, how complex or how simple, and one that will fit your budget as well, okay? We also do label printing. What good would we be as a barcoding company if we couldn't print barcode labels, okay? We do receipt of goods. This is the most common place. Things come in. Maybe your vendor labels stuff, maybe they don't. Even if they do, it may not be labeled the way you want it labeled, so you can print one on demand. This is the one thing that hangs up most people when they think about barcoding. Oh my gosh, the labeling, it sounds so complicated. Trust me, this is one of the simplest things that we do. Once we set it up one time, it's fully automated. All your people have to do when they're receiving a line item is hit the print icon and the labels just spit out. I promise it's really simple. And not only at receipt of goods, we can do it coming out of manufacturing, whether it's the ultimate finished good or whether you have a multi-step work ticket and what you're making is a sub-assembly that will get passed on to the next step. So we can generate these labels all along the way. You can also generate labels at shipping if you want, okay? Now, manufacturing, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in detail later on, so I won't steal all that thunder. But if you're doing manufacturing in Sage, if you have one of the Sage enhancements like bill of materials or production management, we have a handheld data collection app that will plug directly into that. So no more scratching things down on paper and turning it in and hoping they key it in correctly and hoping they don't misinterpret a 4 as a 9. We just do it electronically and automatically. It's really simple, okay? Make to order. I tell you what, I'm going to save that, okay? There's a tease. That one will come a little bit later. But don't tell Sage, we still support work order, okay? In fact, I quoted somebody on work order yesterday. Somebody that was running version 2018, they still want to use work order. We talked about it, and we can still support that, okay? And then when you get ready to move to a later version, you want to swap to production management, we'll swap them out. So you really never lose your investment. We'll just exchange one for the other along the way. We make it really simple, okay? Now, last but not least, mobile sales. We're going to talk a lot about mobile sales today. With mobile sales, you can create sales orders and invoices and yada, 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 all when you're disconnected from Sage, okay? So we're going to get deep into that in a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Last little screen here about us. Speed is one thing that really sets us apart. You may have seen there's videos out there in the public domain about the 1,000,000 record challenge where we had 1,000,000 records and from the handheld we said, go find this one piece of data and it returned it in less than 0.03 seconds, which even by computer standards, pretty darn quick, okay? So based on our architecture, your users aren't gonna be standing in the middle of the warehouse watching the circle spin in the middle of the screen. That doesn't happen to us. We get millisecond response times in most cases. We're really fast. We're also really intuitive, okay? Normally, there's really just one piece of data we're asking for on a screen at a time. When you give us that data, we'll validate it, we'll move you on to the next step, okay? That's very common in our solution. So it's all Sage 100 centric, so the terminology looks and feels and sounds very much like Sage. If it didn't have ScanForce on it, you probably would just assume Sage wrote this and it's their data, handheld data collection application, okay? And support. Our support, top-notch, top tier. If you don't believe me, ask anybody in the Sage 100 world. If you're an end user, talk to your Sage consultant about it, and they'll back that up. It's one of those things where I always tell people, don't take my word for it. Ask anybody else. Our support, second to none, okay? Now, let's jump right into the meat of things and talk about directed physical count. First of all, what is physical count? Well, right out of the box with any of our warehouse management solution options, be it Core, Select, or Premier, the 3 different versions, we offer physical count, the ability to go out in the warehouse and scan an item. And if you're using a multi-bin environment, you can denote the location, how many in that place, then other location, how many are over there. Whether it's a picking location or an overstock location, we handle all of that, okay? And we do it right out of the box. But what it takes is the person walking up to a place and scanning the place and the item and telling us how many are there, okay? But maybe from a management perspective, you want to do a little more. If you want to do cycle counting, maybe you're getting ready to place a big order and you think, you scratch your head, you say, that number in Sage, is that right? I just want to make sure before I hit send on this big PO. Maybe I need to adjust it. So maybe you want to direct the user in the warehouse exactly what to count. Now, you could send them an email or write it down a Post-it note, hand it to them or whatever, but hey, we're a barcoding company, we're a software company. Let's find a way to automate that and make it really easy for everybody. So what we allow you to do is go into Sage and freeze whatever subset of items that you want. Now, you can freeze by item code, or if you're using multi-bin, you can freeze by locations. There's a bunch of different ways you can go about freezing, and you know what these are if you're using Sage today. So once you have your subset of items that need to be counted, those are simply published out to the folks in the warehouse that have the scanners that are going to go do the counting, okay? Now I'm going to walk you through some screens in just a minute that allow you to see what this actually looks like. But the key here is it's automated. You just freeze the items and boom, the folks in the warehouse start working, you don't have to call them, no walkie-talkie, no post-it notes, no emails. It just automatically happens out there on the shop floor. Okay, let's take a look and see what it's going to look like. Well, first of all, when you're on our handheld application, which looks like this, it's sized for like a phone type screen, okay? You go into our physical count. Now, if you're an existing ScanForce user that's used to doing the regular out of the box physical count, this screen looks new to you. You've never seen this before. This is part of the directed physical count. This is an add-on enhancement. So the first thing it gives you is this option to select a zone to count. For instance, if there's 3 of us, if me and 2 of my buddies working in the warehouse, and we've got to count, 9 rows, racks, shelves worth of inventory. And I say, hey guys, I'll count the first 3, you count the next 3, you count the last 3. So I can enter a start and ending point, and that way it's only going to show me the things that need to be counted that are in my zone. And then the same for picker B and picker C, okay? Now, you don't have to do that. If you just skip this screen, on my screen, I'll see everything that you froze back in Sage, and I'll go count all of them. But if you want to segment your inventory, if you've got a big warehouse, or if you've got one guy that works in finished goods and another guy that works in spare parts, you can divvy this up through this bin environment, and you can have it automatically associate with just the things in their area, okay? Now, whether or not you choose to do that or just look at everything, the next question is, okay, tell me where you're counting right now, okay? If you know, you can just go scan a barcode on that shelf and jump right into it. If you don't, you can hit this little search button at any time, and it will bring up this list of all the locations where the items that you froze to count exist. Now, this works in a multi-bin or a non-multi-bin warehouse. We know Sage is a single bin system. In Sage, you can define the location where something lives, even if it's only one place, okay? Now, with the ScanForce multi-bin, it could live in many different places. So the same item may live in a bunch of different places, and that's okay. Each zone counter can count the locations in their area. But as it is, it's asking me to pick a place. You'll see I'm counting in zone, the first row, which is row A in my warehouse. I'm gonna go ahead and select this very first row, this very first location. And now that I've locked in the location, it's showing me all the items that live on that shelf that are part of that freeze, okay? Now, some of you are looking at this and saying, but don't you just have one thing on a shelf at a time? Well, maybe that's the way you work, but other people have many things on a given shelf, and that's okay. ScanForce can keep up with all of them. In this case, I've got multiple items that were frozen that all need to be counted, including some widgets and an AM/FM stereo. Thank you, Sage, for the really up-to-date, cool, hip examples. I checked the reviews on this, and some guy named Greg Brady said it was groovy. So let's go count that one. So we're going to count AM/FM stereos. Now, the system then flips me to a quantity screen. I've got to go count them and plug that in. Now, some of you are looking at the screen, you're seeing this on-hand quantity, and you're jumping up and down, you're throwing things at the screen, and you're saying, no, Brian, don't do it. Don't tell them how many are supposed to be there. My people are lazy. They're just going to type in 46. That way they'll never have to do a reconciliation count because they're lazy. I hear you. If you've got lazy employees, I've got a setting for you. Behind the scenes, there's a little yes, no flag that turns that off. Nobody but you and me and Woody that set this presentation up for us is ever going to know that that setting exists, okay? So you can turn it off, it'll just disappear, and then you have a true blind count. Honestly, that's how most people do it, but I like to leave that on just because I want you to see there's a lot of flexibility. There's a ton of settings behind the scenes in ScanForce that allow you to customize the solution for you, okay? So that's the gist of directed physical count. You freeze what you want to count, even if it's the whole warehouse or just some subset of inventory. You can use this zone approach where you break it down into little areas and individual people only count the things in their area, okay? You define the location that you want to count, and then once you define that location, it's going to show you the items to be counted in that location. These are only part of the items that were frozen, not everything that's there, because that's the only thing that you said you were interested in is counting. Enter a quantity, boom, hit the button, it's back in Sage. really fast, really simple, and automatic. And nobody has to write anything down, okay? Nobody has to hand out clipboards. This is going to be so much faster than what you're doing today, and an incredible amount of accuracy that comes in here, okay? Again, is that a 4? Is that a 9? My handwriting is atrocious. You'd never want me to be in charge of your physical counts, okay? So much more accurate, much faster, much easier on yourself, okay? All right, so that's the directed count enhancement. Again, physical count and cycle counting, all that is embedded. You can do it right out of the box. But if you want this directed method where we freeze things and tell people exactly what we want them to count electronically and automate that, that is an enhancement, okay? So time for another poll question. About how many enhancements do you think ScanForce offers? I talked to you about one of them, okay? Directed physical count. We talked about another one earlier, labeling. Not everybody needs to label, okay? So as you're getting your answers in, I'll describe that. So I have one customer, they said, my parent company back in Italy, they label everything for me. And I'm just the distribution arm in the US, so everything comes in labeled. Well, good for you, okay? But for the rest of us, stuff comes in, it's labeled, either it's not labeled or it's labeled by 10 different companies, 10 different ways. So I'm gonna print my own product label. So labeling is technically an enhancement. It can be either added or removed from the system, okay? All right, we've got a good number of answers in. I'm gonna go and take a look, okay? The correct answer is 68, okay? So again, no wrong answers. I appreciate the 97 vote of confidence that go big. That's never a bad thing, but 68 is the answer. Now, some of these are specific to manufacturing. A bunch of them are, in fact. I'm gonna talk about some before we're done. Some are specific to receiving, like if you receive containers, you have a special enhancement for dealing with containers because that's a little different than your normal UPS or LTL, okay? Some are specific to picking and shipping. For instance, if you want to pick several orders collectively because the same single item may exist on multiple orders and you want your person to go to that pick location one time and get everything they need for all of them, and then we can separate them in the second step, that saves a lot of footsteps. They don't have to go back and forth to that pick location for every order. We have an enhancement that does that exact thing. So when you're talking to me during a discovery process, I do a really deep dive, and I'm going to ask some questions that you may think are a little off the wall, but I promise there's a method to the madness. I'm trying to find out if any of these 68 enhancements would help you by adding efficiencies to your operation. And you'll also find this is very modular with ScanForce. So it's very common that someone starts very simply and they use the crawl before we walk, before we run methodology, and then we could potentially bolt on something later on down the road, okay? All right, let's move on to our second topic of the day, which is mobile sales. The big thing here is we're empowering your sales team. We're giving all the information that your salespeople need to enter the orders when they're disconnected from Sage. So whether you have people that go out and sit in your customer's office and take their orders, or you have route salespeople, or you go to a trade show and you want to take orders from the show floor, or maybe you just have a will call counter and you want somebody to be able to walk around with a device and say, the customer says, I want some of that, some of that, some of that. They can take their order on the fly and it's instantly in Sage. That's exactly what mobile sales does. And this one I think is huge, setting client expectations, okay? I think that's one of my most important jobs in my role, is to set people's expectations as to what things are going to cost and how long it's going to take. Your salespeople should feel the exact same way. If somebody asks me for 50 of something, I want to know that I can get them. And with mobile sales, I can look and see exactly how many are in inventory. And I can say, you know what, I've got 37 on the floor right now in the warehouse. I can get those to you tomorrow if you need them that fast. But I've got bulk in one of my other locations. I can have those shipped in a few days. Will that be okay for you? Okay. Now, the alternative, if you don't have mobile sales, is, you know, I'm gonna have to check. I'm not sure if we got any of that on stock. Now, which one of those do you think is a better customer experience? Okay. If you think the first one, then mobile sales is probably a good choice for you. All right. You're going to give a lot better service to your clients, because as soon as you're done with entering the transaction, you can hit send and it's instantly in Sage, and a pick ticket can be printing out. And if you've got our barcoding solution, the WNS, in the warehouse, they can be picking that order before you even stand up to shake the person's hands and say, thank you for the order. Now, if we can get it started faster, that means your customer is going to get it faster. They're happy. It means you're going to get paid faster. That's never a bad thing. Okay. So it's more efficient. It's faster. It's much more timely. There's a lot of positives to mobile sales. Okay. Now, in this case, I want to do an actual live demo for you. Okay. So bear with me just a quick second. I want to change my screen share for just a moment. And I want to share out a different screen here so you can actually see what mobile sales looks like. Now I'm showing it in two different forms, okay? The first form over here on the right, the larger, this is on a tablet view. Imagine like an iPad or a Galaxy tab or something like that. Over here on the left, this is what it would look like on your phone. Now I can see all the same information. It's just that on a phone, I'm gonna have to do a lot more scrolling, okay? Much smaller screen. On the right, much bigger screen, a lot more screen real estate here, okay? So I'm actually going to show this to you on the tablet, but know that this can work on a phone as well. If you do this once in a while, the phone may be great, so you don't have to carry an extra device. But if it's an all day, everyday thing, you're probably going to appreciate the screen real estate that you get from the tablet view. So let me show you what this is going to look like. First of all, let's take a quick tour. Number one, where this says ScanForce, imagine your logo here. We intend this to be customer facing. You can turn this around at any point in time and show it to your customer, and we want your branding to be on there. So this can say your logo, not necessarily ScanForce, okay? Now over here, I have a quick history. I've entered one order and I've saved it on my device. I haven't sent it back yet because it's an unsent transaction. The total is $12.60, okay? And obviously the average total is the same because we only have one transaction. But I could build up multiple transactions, then hit send data down here, and they would all send as a group, or I could send them one as one, okay? Now, this, if you have cellular, obviously you can do this at any point in time. If you're working on a Wi-Fi tablet, you're gonna collect the data on here, build up some quantities, and then when you acquire a Wi-Fi signal, then you can send the data back. So it's an either or. Most people choose the cellular version because they want that speed, that instantaneous nature, okay? Now, up here at the top, I have transactions and inquiries, right? This is things that I'm going to do right now on my local device. This is history, okay? Let's look at history first. If I want to do an item inquiry, I'm going to see a list of every item I've got over here, and I can scroll through the whole blooming thing. That's not the most accurate way to get to stuff, though, okay? But maybe I don't remember the name or the product number, but I think, hey, it's one of those widgets, okay? Everybody knows what a widget is, right? So I can just type in part of the name, and it will show me a list of all the widgets that I have, and I can select from that list, okay? Likewise, I could come up here, and I could say, I don't remember the item code, but it's one of those 1900 item codes. Well, I can type in 19, and then I'm going to see that list there, okay? Then I could go ahead and select one of those items from the list, and you can default in the warehouse that you're working out of, or like I'm doing here, I can tab through all of them, and I can see what I've got on hand, what's reserved, what's coming in on POs. This is crucial because if you're getting low, you can see what's coming in as reinforcements, and I can see what's available. Now I can refresh this data right before I talk to that customer. So I have up to the second data. I'm giving the customer exactly the correct information, and I'm giving it to them when they want it, which is instantly, okay? Images can pull forward, a lot of good data that's here, okay? All right, I'm gonna back out of here. Customer inquiry, okay? I can go look at a customer, and this is all the same data you'd see in Sage, all right? I can look at the main info, and all this is grayed out here, okay, because I'm not changing anything, but I can look at the contacts, and if I'm driving to see somebody and I'm stuck in traffic, I could say, oh, let me call them real quick. We don't have to call the office and say, hey, give me their phone number. It's right here. Okay, and maybe it's not Artie that I need to call, maybe it's John. So I flip over there, I've got phone numbers, maybe a cell number, email. I can say, hey, the hours they work, their approval, and any kind of notes. It's really great information. Again, empowering the salespeople to be able to make decisions. Ship tos, I can glance through them. I can say, hey, look, there's the Racine location, but look, there's the Milwaukee location if I'm looking for addresses or anything like that. And if I click over here on open transactions, these are open invoices. And I can see what's current and what's old. And some of our customers say, check this every time before you walk into a customer. If there's anything in 90 or below, that's the first thing you need to talk to them about, okay? Because maybe we don't take orders if you're 120 days out, okay? We got to get that cleared up. And if you want to dig down to the, excuse me, easy for me to say, drill down to the details, just select an order, hit detail, and now I can see quantities and prices and all that kind of stuff, and I can drill down. I can also flip over here and I can look at open sales orders versus open invoices, okay? So you could toggle between current versus historical there, all right? All right, jump back to our main menu. New transactions. When you do a new transaction, first thing it wants to know is who are we doing it for, okay? I'll select American business, okay? Now, the type of transaction, this is totally controllable by you. Sometimes you may only want quotes and orders. Maybe you don't want people issuing invoices. Maybe that's something that happens only in the office, or credit memos or things like that. So we can truncate this list and make it look like just what you want, okay? I'm gonna go enter a new sales order. Now, this screen looks oddly familiar. It's identical to what we just looked at in the customer history, except now things aren't grayed out, okay? They're open and I can change them. But maybe you don't like that because the terms. Maybe you don't want the salesperson changing the terms on every Beacon order. I set the terms back in the office. The salesperson just enters the order based on the terms I set. That's okay. We'll gray that field out on this screen so they can't change it. Same with the tax. So if there's anything here that you don't want the customer, or excuse me, that you don't want the salesperson to alter, you can change that. The addresses, you know, I can say up here, you know, I want that to ship to the Milwaukee location, all right? And then we get to the line items. Again, this looks just like the item inquiry screen that we saw a few minutes ago, okay? Excuse me. I can scroll down. I can look at all of my items. I can select one of them. You'll notice that the price is $5. But if I say I want 15 of them, the price drops to $4.65. So all your customers' pricing history is going to pull forward and be saved here, okay? So we've got all that data that's available at the fingertips. And here's those quantities that we saw earlier, okay? I'll go ahead and add that to my list. And I'll pick the second item here. Maybe we just don't want one of those, and I'll go ahead and pick a third. Maybe we want a couple of those. I'll add those in, okay? I also have this little barcode button over here. So if you're walking around in your customer's facility and they say, oh, I need some more of those, well, you can just click that button and through the camera, we'll turn it on and we'll scan the barcode. If it's got your product label on it, if you have a WNF that came through, then you go ahead and scan it and accept the order that way, okay? Now, up here at the top, this is kind of interesting. We have this catalog view, okay? So as I scroll down here, you'll see I don't have any images loaded in my demo library because what the heck does a widget look like after all? But if you do, we can display those. So you can go through here with your customer and they can say, oh, that one right there, that's the one that I want. Give me a couple of those, okay? Well, I'll just add those in right there, okay? Then I can jump back to my, oops, I didn't want to cancel out of that. I'll just jump back to my normal view, okay? Now, if I go to the total screen, I can see those two that I just added, okay? I've got my totals over here, everything looks good. I can turn this around to the customer, again, customer facing, and say, Mr. Customer, does this look like what you want to order? They can, yep, everything looks good. I'll say, great, give me that John Hancock right here. And I am terrible at doing this with a mouse, but actually that worked out pretty good. I'll go ahead and save that. Now, this image file gets sent back to Sage and saved. And what a lot of people will do is they'll import that onto their invoice form so that when the invoice gets sent for this, there's a record of the person that ordered it, okay? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hit save. Gonna save this order. I get a summary screen. If I want, I could print a copy. But you don't use that a lot. Sometimes if you have drivers on route sales, they have a printer in the cab of their truck or something like that. Email is what's used most often. So as long as the email is in the system, if you hit email, it's going to go to the person that's attached to this order, okay? And if you didn't catch signature on the last page, we give you another shot right here, all right? All right, I'm going to jump back to my main menu. I now have 2 unsent transactions here, okay? What their average is, what their total is, so now I can go back and look at them. If I want to review those, I just click here and I would see those historical data. I could go through, edit, delete, whatever I need to do, okay? And then when I'm done, when I'm ready, I just hit send. I've only got 2 sales orders. Remember, we could do invoices. There were multiple types of transactions. Those would all show here with their count. I'm going to go ahead and hit send, and boom, just that fast, those orders are in Sage. Pick tickets are printing out. People have them on their scanner, and they're going to go and start picking them for shipment. And now I finally get to thank the customer for their order. So that's how fast all this can happen. Again, we're giving your customer exactly what they want, which is the data right now. How many do I have? Can I fulfill this order? What's my price? If I order a few more, what will happen to my price? They can play around with all that in the quote and then turn it into an order, okay? Settings, I won't get into. Really, that's just where we just background stuff. If you do have mobile printers, that's where we set that kind of stuff up, but pretty basic stuff. So that's the gist on mobile sales. The big thing here is speeding up the process, empowering your salespeople, giving them all the tools that they need to enter orders, the customer histories, all the pricing levels, the inventory quantities right there at their fingertips. Really, really slick, okay? All right, I'm going to pause this and jump back over to the presentation. And let me get the right screen there. Only got 3 of them here. Okay, so what's hot right now? Let me just talk about a few things that are of interest to a lot of the Sage 100 users. And so I wanted to mention them to you to see if this sparked any kind of interest, okay? The first one of which, and we're not going to go into any great detail on these, I just want to kind of hit the high points. It's license plating. Now, most people think of license plating as pallet tracking. It's just a way of identifying products that are together. Most of the time, that's on a pallet. But maybe it's not pallets in your world. Maybe it's crates or totes or gaylords or whatever kind of packing you use. Imagine you're picking an order, and I've got 50 items, and I put some on pallet 1, some on pallet 2, and some on pallet 3. They're all mixed in there, okay? And then I find out the customer says, okay, I'll send a truck next week. They're great. Okay, I thought I was going to get this off my floor today. Well, ScanForce will print a label for each of those 3 pallets or crates or totes or whatever. And it says, this is pallet number 1001, 1002, 1003, and I've got a list of everything that's on there. I can stage those, okay? Sage knows now everything that's on each pallet. When the truck arrives a week from now, nobody's going to remember what they did. They're not going to remember what's under the shrink wrap of each one, but they don't have to. A completely separate person could just walk up and scan each of the 3 pallet ID tags or, quote, license plates, and everything ships at one time. You don't have to identify all the parts and pieces anymore. This just allows you to move things around very efficiently, group them together, okay? The next topic that I want to talk about is order assignment. Most of you are probably printing pick tickets today, and you put them in packed little piles, and picker A takes pile A, and picker B takes pile B, and so on. There's a way to automate that. So through our dashboard, which we call our management console, for those of you that are existing customers, we're going to add a tab called order assignment. And I can sort my orders, and I can say, show me everything that needs to be picked today. Show me, parcel versus LTL or, whatever. And you get a subset of inventory orders that need to be picked. And then I can publish them out to individual workers, and I can balance my workload. So if I've got, 1 big order and 3 small orders, maybe it's the same amount of work. So I assign 1 to picker A and 3 to picker B, and they've got the same amount of work to do today. I could also prioritize. I could drag 1 order to the top and say, somebody's coming to get that one, get it picked first, okay? And this allows you to go completely paperless. No more pick tickets, save all those trees, okay? Starship Integration. If you know of anybody using Starship, this is an absolute no-brainer. What happens today, you pick things, you write it down on pick tickets or whatever, then you log into Starship and you have to input a bunch of data into Starship, and it takes a while, and then you hit the button and your labels finally spit out, okay? Now, we love Starship, so much so we developed an integration with them, okay? What happens is you use ScanForce handhelds to scan things into box 1, box 2, and box 3. We can calculate the weight for you automatically based on the theoretical weight of that product times the quantity, or you can scale weigh it and enter it either way, okay? And then we're going to just have a drop down, real simple drop down for your user to select the box size, because that impacts the price of the shipment, okay? And we are even specific about that. If it's the ship via on the order is UPS, we're only going to show you UPS boxes. If it's FedEx, we're going to show you FedEx boxes, and so on. So all we're really asking your user to do outside the norm is tell us the size of the box you're putting it in. And that, again, is a drop-down. They just click it. Now, if you need to enter custom sizes, we'll allow for that too. But the point is, we collect that data, we send it back to shipping data entry in Sage. Then we're going to ping Starship for you and say, we've collected all the data, give me my labels, and the labels will just magically spit out. Your users will not have to log into Starship again. They'll never even know Starship was in the mix. Now, of course, on the admin side, there's account setup and maintenance that you'll do occasionally on Starship. But the point is, on an order by order, box by box basis, your users don't have to interface with Starship. We do that interface for you. Collect the data on the handheld. We ping Starship, labels spit out, just that simple. Okay. Production management. I told you I'd talk a little bit more about manufacturing. Here it is. So of course we do material issues and completions like you would expect, and we track labor a couple different ways. Make to order is one of 6 enhancements. I told you a tease I would get to that. What this does is, if you're a make to order shop as opposed to a make to stock shop, okay? If you make to order, when you enter a sales order, ScanForce can automatically create the work ticket for you to make the product needed to ship on that order. We removed that step from the process on every single transaction. How much time and energy and labor savings would that mean in your shop if you are truly a make-to-order organization, okay? Or even if you're, some of one, some of the other. For the make-to-orders, it doesn't have to automatically. We can pop up a question on the screen during sales order entry and say, hey, you want me to create this work order for you? Yes or no? Now, this next one, work ticket material management. This one's huge. If you zoned out for a minute, zone back in. You're not going to want to miss this, okay? For the first time ever, what you're allowed to do, you can reserve the raw material component inventory to a work ticket. So if you've got 100 and you need 50 for a particular work ticket, you can create a reservation. We call that an allocation against those 50. So they are held, reserved, allocated for that particular work ticket and not available for any other. Never been capable of doing it before, but we can now with this enhancement, okay? We can also do some really cool things with labor, like labor dilution. Imagine if my job, I'm running a machine, actually, maybe I'm running 3 machines, and I set it up and let it run. I set up in the second one, third one, and they run for, let's say, an hour. Well, if I clock in and clock out on all 3 jobs, I'm going to look like the model employee because between 1 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I did 3 hours worth of labor, okay? That's a problem. That's a manual thing that you have to go in and extract and manipulate that and massage that data. Or if you have our labor dilution plugin, it will just automatically look at that and say, that was really just 20 minutes on this job and 20 minutes on that job and 20 minutes on the other. So it will automatically dilute the labor for you so you don't have to think about it. Your user doesn't have to think about it. You don't have to think about it. The system does the thinking for you and just gives you the accurate information. Okay? Now, there are some others, but again, I'm not going to bore you because I know not everybody's into manufacturing. If you are, let's talk. Okay? Last but not least, support. I mentioned this before. We feel like our support is the very best in the Sage world of all the ISVs that are out there. There's some great ones, but we think we're head and shoulders when it comes to support. You have unlimited contact to our help desk, whether it's by email or phone call. We don't limit that. There's no overage charges. We don't charge you extra for speedy turnaround time. We do it all fast. In fact, over the course of an entire year, our average time to respond in a whole year was 26 minutes. And that's for all the emails and phone calls that came in, which means that half the time we're beating 26 minutes, okay? Now, whether it's a update to a Sage or a PU1, PU2, or whatever, we get advanced copies of that from Sage. We're a master developer in the Sage world. So we've already got our ducks in a row next April when 2026 hits the street. So when you're ready to upgrade, you will be too. You won't ever have to wait on us. We'll be ready, I promise. So it's a real simple process. You just contact us or have your Sage consultant contact us. Our guys will remote in and take care of everything. We make it really, really simple. Okay. All right. And that is our time for today. be happy to open it up to any questions that you have. There's our contact info. That info at ScanForce goes to my whole team, so one of us will get back to you. If you call that number and ask for Brian, I'm the only one here, so I'm easy to find. So Woody, do we have any questions yet in the chat? By the way, if you didn't know, you could put questions in the chat, and then we'll be able to get those answered for you.
Yeah, there are two sections, as Brian just mentioned. There's a question section, and there's a chat section. So if you guys want to go ahead and put it in either one, I'm monitoring both. So while those are coming in, I do have another question about hardware. Some questions often about existing hardware, if they have existing hardware, or do we provide the hardware?
Both. Okay, we certainly provide hardware. We're an authorized reseller of Zebra Technologies. So scanners, printers, all the accoutrement that goes along with it, we can add that to it. So generally, when we give you a quote, it's one piece of paper for the entire project. The only thing we don't supply are the physical consumable labels, because again, by nature of them being consumable, you're gonna need to order those repetitively. You're probably better off doing that locally. But scanners, printers, we do. If you already have scanners, 90% of the time they'll work, printers, same way. But that's part of the discovery process. You tell me what you have, and I'll give you a go, no go on it. But most of the time, yes, you can use your own stuff.
All right, we have a housekeeping question. Can I get a copy of this webinar? Yes. We will post this video afterwards, and you should receive an email in the next 24 hours or so with the link of this. So it'll be a great opportunity for you to catch up on some of the wisdom that Brian shared, or pass it on to one of your coworkers. So thank you very much for that question. Next question, does ScanForce support item-based cycle counting?
Sure, you could do cycle counting. Now, out of the box, you can do cycle counting, absolutely. Or if you have the enhancement that we talked about today, you just freeze those item codes, and that will show up as a to-do list or a to-count list on the scanner for that person to go count. So absolutely. So it does not have to be a full, like, shut down inventory. We have customers that do cycle counting all the time. So you can either say, you know, count these specific items before you place a big purchase order, or you can hand the guy a scanner and say, count the left-hand side of the aisle today, and tomorrow count the right-hand side of the aisle, that sort of thing. All the above are possible.
Next question, are we able to use license plates with the receiving department?
Absolutely, you can receive by license plate. That's one of those settings behind the scene. We turn it on for receiving. So a pallet comes off the truck, okay? You can identify what that pallet is. It's 20 cases of product X. And if the vendor already has a pallet tag on there, you can scan that pallet tag and use that as your pallet ID, as your license plate. As long as it is unique in the system, you can do that without having to relabel it.
All right, next question. When running Sage 100 and ScanForce, when doing physical counts, can users still be in the system during report generation?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You could have 100 people receiving and picking orders, and you could have your, you know, your least experienced employee out there doing physical counts, killing time. Sure, absolutely.
Does the item need to be frozen to count?
No, it does not. Now, for the directed physical count enhancement that I showed you today, what sends them the list of things to count is by you freezing it in Sage. Okay, this is actually a very good question. I'm glad it was asked. I should have thought to cover that during the topic, so thank you whoever asked it. So what happens in the normal physical count that's included in all the versions of our WMS is you could just go count something, and when you count it on the handheld, whenever you send that data back, we're going to freeze it for you at that moment. So we take that image, that snapshot in time of what the inventory looked like, and then we compare that to what was actually counted. So no, you do not have to freeze them unless you're using the directed physical count. And again, that's what sends them the list of things you want to count.
Next question, can Sage print receipt tickets off of the PO coming in?
Receipt tickets. So, I mean, when it comes to what we do from a printing standpoint is product labels. So I'm not exactly sure. I would much rather you ping me an email with your specific question to that info email address, and let's talk about that. I don't want to misinterpret what you're asking and give you the wrong answer. So please ping me an email about that and we'll get back with you.
Next question. When we run the variance report register, we have to have all users exit scanners and Sage. Is this normal?
You know what? I'm not a Sage consultant. I don't want to answer that question. So a Sage consultant could tell you that for certain. What we do, we collect the data on the handheld and we send it back to Sage. And then the normal Sage processes take over, like from the variation report down. So I don't want to misspeak simply because I'm not that familiar. I would much rather you ask your Sage consultant that specifically. Or if you're an existing ScanForce customer doing this today, which sounds like you might be, just ping an email to support at ScanForce and ask that question, and someone will get back to you on average of 26 minutes, and they will get that question answered for you.
All right, and I believe that is all the questions that we've got at the moment. Again, if you have anything specific, Brian's always available at info@scanforce.com. If you have much more specific and detailed questions, he will talk to you about that. And that's all we got over here, Brian.
Great, excellent. Well, thanks everybody. We'll give you 4 minutes of your life back to answer all those emails that came in during the hour. I greatly appreciate your time. Doors always open. Please let us know what we can do to assist. Thanks everybody for attending. Bye now.